everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus, coming back a little bit earlier than expected, mainly because Wizards kind of dropped a bomb out of nowhere. About 2 months ago we had the huge debate about a ban and restricted announcement, what might they ban in Modern, some possibilities. The number one biggest thing on people's wish lists was the banning of Lurrus the Dream Den, and 2 months later, with no fanfare, they just dropped a random ban announcement on a Tuesday, or on a Monday here. And it was Lurrus the Dream Den is gone in both Pioneer and Modern, and then some bannings in Pauper, which obviously we don't really care about on this particular channel. But as for the reasonings of the card, a lot of things people have been talking about. Since the release of Modern Horizons 2, it's enjoyed a period of experimentation and exploration. Despite that, Lurrus has always remained a big part of the meta. Lurrus's play rate, 31% in Magic Online League decks that started with 4 wins. So basically anything like 4-win, 4-1, or 5-0 points to a card, contributing to the homogenizing of Modern. Basically, everybody's playing the bloody card. As is often the case in larger non-rotating formats, there's already a strong incentive to include as many cheap and efficient cards. Lurrus compounds those incentives by providing a powerful additional resource that helps to alleviate the weakness of filling your deck with cheaper and often less impactful spells as games go on. For too many archetypes, Lurrus isn't a trade-off, but purely an additive. Due to play data, community feedback, and a desire to keep as diverse a range of deck as possible, Lurrus the Dream Den is banned in Modern. Basically what they're saying, decks like Burn got to play Lurrus without there being an issue. Other decks like Death Shadow and Jund both started playing even cheaper and cheaper spells because, well, it's better to play Lurrus than to play a Liliana the Veil or Seasoned Pyromancer or anything like that. So basically Lurrus force people to play with good cards. One thing as you're playing in a format like Legacy or as Modern's becoming Legacy Light, the cheap spells are what's important. Lurrus wasn't really enough of a punishment or deck building restriction for those decks. I would argue that Wizards probably should have gone a step further and banned Yorion in addition to Lurrus of the Dream Den. I believe I said when I talked about it in my original ban discussion video that if they're going to ban Lurrus, they should probably also ban Yorion, because Yorion has been a big part of the 3 and 4 color Omnath Blink elemental decks. And I think, one of the weaknesses of the kind of mid-range strategies, things like Death Shadow, things like Jund and such, is they lack a longer game going tool, or they don't have that free longer game going tool that those blue soup decks now have. Now, where there are things in the format that can potentially check those, you have things like Amulet, you have things like, Green Tron, that can kind of put a damper on the upper ceiling of the 4-color mid-range elemental decks, 4-color mid-range blue soup decks. However, there is a risk now that mid-range might get pushed further out of the format, especially since, this Lurrus also hurts a lot of the few aggressive decks that were still viable in the format. So while it does theoretically open up the deck building possibilities of mid-range decks, forces people to be a little bit more creative with how they build their decks, like maybe going back to the old Grixis Death Shadow with the Gerbag Angler, or maybe you include Murktide Regent in the Grixis Shadow decks now. A lot of different things you can do with the decks, but that does not necessarily mean that they're going to end up being stronger. Now, there have been cases where cards getting banned, i.e. Gitaxian Probe, and a better version of a deck gets found, like the going from the old aggressive Grixis Death Shadow when Gitaxian Probe got banned to the more kind of mid-range, Angler, Death Shadow, Thought Scour, those kind of base decks that became more discovered as, things happen. Sometimes when bannings happen, better versions of decks are found. Hogak, another example where they banned, I believe, Bridge from Below, and then the Altar version was found. And, there are times where this can force innovation and force decks to become better and open up the format. And I think in the short term, this will open the format back up. However, I would still say Burn probably going to be poorly positioned, because I don't really think a lot of the decks that Burn was hurt by have gotten hurt all that much. Obviously, a lot of the black-green or black-red X decks, the Shadow decks, the black-green or black-red Rock decks were tough matchups for Burn, which historically Burn had a reasonable matchup against Shadow, but just felt like that matchup got worse and worse. Overall, I think Lurrus being banned was probably about due. I just wish that they would have taken an additional step to kind of balance out the loss of the format. Maybe ban Yorion, maybe hit something else from the controlling decks. But remains to be seen. Maybe Lurrus will be enough to shake the format up. but I know a lot of people were looking forward to this card being banned. The cat is back in the hat, and we'll see how the format plays out. As far as future content, I'll probably be back doing more talking content like this, but as far as gameplay, I'm probably still going to be a little ways off before I get back into gameplay, as I'll need to get back into knowledge of the format a little bit and be playing a little bit more before I start doing gameplay content videos again. But once again, Lurrus of the Dream Den is banned in Modern. This has been John for MTG Nexus. Hope everybody is having a great